On paper and in simulated benchmarks, the MacBook Pro 14 M4 Pro with 24 gigs of RAM looks to be the absolute best creator laptop ever made. However, in some real-world benchmarks and use cases, it falls short. In this video, I'm going to put head-to-head the latest MacBook Pro 14 with the M4 Pro and 24 gigs of RAM with the ASUS ProArt PX13 and P16 to help you decide which laptop is the best creator laptop for your needs. Let's dive into the build quality and usability of these devices, and then we'll look at the performance benchmarks and talk about the implications and help you discover which one is right for you. Now, first and foremost, the two laptops that are most compatible from a form factor standpoint are obviously the 13-inch and the 14-inch. I do have the 16-inch here because I want to show the performance opportunity when we get later down the line in the benchmark section. But also, we have some differences here in the devices. So with the P16, we have a standard clamshell laptop that opens up to about the 45-degree angle. So this would be a great comparison for the 16-inch version of the MacBook Pro. Now, I personally only ordered, with my own money, the 14-inch model. I felt like it was the best all-around comparison with performance and form factor and just made the most sense for my reviews. For the PX13, one of the big advantages to the form factor is going to be the 2-in-1 capability, and it's pen compatible. P16 is also pen compatible, something to keep in mind when making a purchase of the perfect creator laptop. Because when it comes to the MacBook Pro, it is not pen compatible, as I'm sure you already knew. No Mac laptop has ever been pen compatible. If you want pen compatibility, you purchase an iPad as a device. However, that kind of limits you to the fact that you cannot use desktop like native applications from, say, Adobe with an iPad. So you're limited by the device on certain things you can accomplish, whether it be InDesign, Illustrator, or the desktop versions of Photoshop or Lightroom, whatever it might be. Using the pen on the PX13 and the P16 is a very nice experience. Throw up some B-roll as we were talking about this, and it just has good sensitivity. It is Microsoft Pen protocol, but they do a good job with the screen to pen compatibility, get good strokes, and overall, it's a great experience. That'd be a big advantage using the ProArt series if you're somebody who wants to have that pen compatibility inside of one device. You don't have to carry around an iPad and your Apple MacBook Pro. So that is some flexibility. It also could be some cost savings to you. Speaking of the price of these devices, we have different models available for the P16, PX13, and then obviously the MacBook Pro comes in a lot of different variations. However, as a whole, you can get the PX13 for as low as I think $1699, and then the P16 for as low as I think $1899, whereas the base model price for a MacBook Pro 14-inch model is $1999. So you're gonna have a little bit of cost savings, and if you want to have the integrated pen functionality, you're going to have even more cost savings because you don't have to buy an iPad along with your MacBook Pro to get that pen functionality. Some key reasons why this is, I'm saying this is almost the best creator laptop ever. It has some limitations. It for sure has limitations depending on your use case. And the P16 and the PX13 from ASUS have some great offerings. Okay, I kind of segued a little bit when talking about the build quality to some other things, but I think it's very important to consider. Now, back to the build quality. So with the PX13, I think it's the best assembled version of the laptop. It has nice rounded edges all the way around the device, and so it's very comfortable to hold. It's most reminiscent of the MacBook Pro 14-inch model with how it's assembled. As you look at the P16, it doesn't round all the way around. And so it has this kind of sharp edge here along the corner, and then it just has a flat edge along the back. I just don't like the design aesthetic as much. I think the PX13 was done better. Looking at the MacBook Pro, classic MacBook Pro CNC aluminum chassis, beautifully done, very, very well done. Thick, sturdy aluminum. And then of course you have all the very nice rounded edges, very comfortable to hold in your hand. These rounded edges, like where it falls off down to the side of the laptop, are much more comfortable. They're much more rounded. And so it's a more comfortable device to hold in your hand. I would say also that it is a heavier device, just off of the feel of the device. There's thinner aluminum materials that are used for the PX13, and it's noticeable. If you want some more like rigid, sturdy feeling device, the MacBook Pro would be what I would choose. It's so funny because for so long, everybody's like, oh, make it lighter, make it lighter. And then they make it lighter and it doesn't feel as sturdy as something that's just a little bit heavier. So I would say my hat is off to the MacBook Pro for creating a much more rigid and sturdy feeling device in the hand. This is a new kind of finish for the PX13 and the P16 that's supposed to be like anti-fingerprints. It does a fairly good job, but you can still see some markings on it. Whereas with the MacBook Pro, choosing this silver color, you really don't see any fingerprints. I would recommend this lighter classic silver MacBook Pro if you're considering the MacBook Pro over that new like space gray. You're gonna see more fingerprints on the space gray. Next thing we're looking at is the ports. For the different devices, we have the MacBook Pro, PX13, and the P16. So you can see we have HDMI, USB-C, and then headphone jack, as well as our power adapter. For the MacBook Pro, power adapter, USB-C, and headphone jack. Now we have the HDMI here for the MacBook Pro. HDMI was on the other side for the two ASUS ProArts. And then we have USB-A, USB-A, USB-C, and then we have a micro SD card reader for the PX13 and a full-size SD card reader for the P16. Full-size SD card reader for the MacBook Pro. I would say the P16 and the MacBook Pro are gonna have the better connectivity because that full-size SD card reader. I know people say you can use the, micro SD card for expandable storage. I have said that in the past as well. I just don't think it's as advantageous as a port as the full-size SD card reader. The laptop by far with the best upgrade path is going to be the P16. You have access to two M.2 slots within the device. One is occupied with the boot drive, one is unoccupied. PX13 comes in second place with one M.2 slot. That's housing the boot drive. And so if you wanted to swap that out for more storage, you'd have to reinstall Windows on that new drive and expand your storage that way. And the loser for the upgrade path is going to be the MacBook Pro. This is something that Apple has done very intentionally. They have really fast speeds for that drive. However, it's a lot of money to upgrade your storage. There's no upgrade path on the MacBook Pro. RAM, storage, none of that. It's all integrated, soldered into the device. And so that is something that can be challenging for people who want to have post-purchase upgrades. We're gonna go ahead and open and close these devices with one hand very quickly. Start with the PX13 and the MacBook Pro. One thing I noticed is it's quite a bit bouncy. You can see the MacBook Pro stops bouncing rather quickly and the PX13 continues that bounce. So if you're somebody who travels a lot and is on the go, whether you're on a train or a plane or in the back seat of a taxi or Uber, and you like to keep working, you're gonna have a much more bouncy screen experience by choosing the ProArt series from ASUS. So just keep that in mind. Now let's look at the flex. Quite a bit more flex as well on the ProArt series, and then here is the PX13. Pretty flexy as well. That's what I'm saying with the materials chosen for the MacBook Pro. They've just created a much more rigid device. As you can see, we have upward facing speakers on the P16. We have the simplified keyboard deck on both the P16 and the PX13, very similar to the MacBook Pro. The power button is going to be here on the P16. Power button is on the side for the PX13. Then of course you have the power button and fingerprint reader on the MacBook Pro right there. I love that quick fingerprint reader login. I've never really used fingerprint readers in the past until I started using my MacBook Air 15, and I really like it. It's very responsive. It works very well. Testing out the keyboards, the PX13 and the P16 is actually quieter than the MacBook Pro. So if you're looking for a quiet keyboard, I would definitely choose the ASUS ProArt. Looking at the trackpad, we have a manual click trackpad with the dial integrated into the trackpad. The dial is a really neat feature. I have filmed full dedicated reviews of both the PX13 and the P16, and I give you a full tour of the dial. I will just say that it does help with productivity. You can program the dial to increase or decrease your brush size, change your opacity, all kinds of different things inside of Photoshop or Premiere Pro. And so it is nice having that extra feature available to you to improve your workflow. That is not available on the MacBook Pro. Some people consider it a gimmick. I think it can be used to be very effective in improving your workflow. A manual click trackpad secured very nice to the chassis versus the MacBook Pro with the haptic trackpad. Haptic trackpad, rounded edges, squared off edges for the PX13 and the P16, and a slightly louder keyboard with dished keys. The keys on the PX13 and the P16 are flat. The Apple MacBook Pro has dished keys. I like the feel of the keyboard's keys on the MacBook Pro better. I like the quietness on the PX13. Here's a quick sample of me using both the keyboards and trackpads so you can hear for yourself what they sound like in use. And also there are webcams along the top bezel. The webcam is actually, kind of integrated into the screen here on the MacBook Pro with the notch. Some people hate it, some people love it, as always. So here's a sample of each of the webcams so you can see and hear for yourself. This is the webcam on the MacBook Pro 14-inch model and a little sample of the audio for you as well. This is the webcam on the ASUS ProArt PX13 and a little sample of the audio for you as well. This is the webcam on the ASUS ProArt P16 and a little sample of the audio for you as well. And then of course, speakers. We have large upward facing speakers on the P16, not on the PX13, and then on the MacBook Pro. Here's a sample of each of the speakers in use so you can hear for yourself. Okay, now looking at the screen bezels, you can see on the MacBook Pro, we have the rounded screen bezel. So it's not squared off here in the corner versus the PX13 where we have squared off bezels. Now they're both glossy displays, so you can see quite reflective on both devices. You can see my light up there, light. But I would say that the OLED displays on the ProArt series are going to be slightly better than the display on the Apple MacBook Pro. Again, why this is not the best creator device in the world, as some might try to promote and market. P16s definitely have a strong edge on the game for a number of reasons. And again, we've already pointed out some of those. You have pen compatibility. You have the ASUS dial, which can improve productivity if used well. You have a far more color accurate and better color gamut range on the screen. Looking here at the displays, you can see for the P16, we have a 4K display at 3840 by 2400 at 60 hertz refresh rate. Now that is disappointing some people. A lot of users are hoping for a higher refresh rate. The MacBook Pro does have a 120 hertz refresh rate. Now we have 498 nits of screen brightness at 100% sRGB, 98% Adobe RGB, and 99% DCI-P3 at a delta E of 1.09. For the PX13, 3K OLED display, 2880 by 1800 at 60 hertz refresh rate, 497 nits of screen brightness at 100% sRGB, 96% Adobe RGB, and 99% DCI-P3 at a delta E of 0.91. Now for the MacBook Pro, 4K display at 3024 by 1964 resolution at 120 hertz. They say we get the up to 1000 nits or even 1600 nits of screen brightness. However, I never used it at that screen brightness. I'm usually at around 350 nits of screen brightness on my display, and it's fine for me. We have 100% sRGB, 85% Adobe RGB, and 96% DCI-P3 at a delta E of 1.21. You can see that we have slightly better screens on the ProArt series. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the battery life. And this is an area where I'm gonna give a big, huge gold star to the MacBook Pro. For the battery life on the MacBook Pro, let's just throw it out there. 19 hours and 27 minutes for productivity, 20 hours and 11 minutes for streaming video playback, 9 hours and 12 minutes for Photoshop, 7 hours and 54 minutes for Premiere Pro continuous looping 4K project playback. And then I actually edited a project, allowed it to loop and exported, and that gave me about 7 hours of battery life. Now for the PX13, we have about 11 hours of productivity, and that's with the GPU turned off, 20% screen brightness, Windows battery saver mode turned on, and this the best power efficiency possible, not focused on performance. 9 hours and 46 minutes for streaming video playback, 5 hours and 42 minutes for Photoshop, 4 hours for Premiere Pro playback, and then 2 hours and 21 minutes for editing and exporting. You're not gonna get the full performance out of the device when you are on battery power. With the MacBook Pro, you will. That's how they have created the device. No matter if you're on battery power or if you're plugged into the wall, you're gonna get full performance. Now, for the P16, we are seeing 9 hours and 12 minutes for productivity, 9 hours for stream video playback, 5 hours for Photoshop, 4 hours for continuous playback in Premiere Pro, and then 3 hours and 17 minutes to edit and export on the P16. Once again, if you're curious about the exact pricing and availability, links are in the description below. Click those links. If you do make a purchase, I'll get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. Now, let's go ahead and look at the performance section of this video. Super crucial part of the video to help you pick the right laptop for your needs. First and foremost, we have the P16 with the Ryzen AI 9 HX 370, RTX 4070 GPU, and 32 gigs of RAM. For the PX13, we have the same AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX 370. We have the RTX 4050 and 4060 benchmark results in this video. And we have 32 gigs of RAM on both of those devices. For the MacBook Pro M4, we have the M4 Pro with 14 cores, 20 core GPU, 16 core neural engine, 24 gigs of RAM, and a 1 terabyte SSD. That's the spec I have for the MacBook Pro. Now, looking at Geekbench results, it appears that the MacBook Pro completely dominates the two other laptops. You can see that we have a 3,951 for the single core performance. We look at multi-core performance, 23,000 versus the 14,000 and 13,000 found on the ProArt series laptops. For single core performance for Cinebench 2024, 116, 113 versus 174. For multi-core, 1600 versus 1200 and 1100. By all means, the simulated benchmarks makes it look as if these laptops are totally being crushed by the MacBook Pro. As we get into Photoshop, things get closer, but the efficiency of the M4 Pro chip still puts the MacBook Pro substantially on top of these Ryzen AI 9 processors, even with 32 gigs of RAM, which is soldered to the motherboard. So as it sits right now, the MacBook Pro would be the way to go. If you don't care about pen compatibility, having the most color accurate screen, the dial, or even having the quiet keyboard, and 2-in-1 screen on the PX13, the MacBook Pro would be the way to go. As we move into 3D modeling, that is where it's just a simple choice of what apps are available. Still to this day, the best laptop for 3D modeling that is able to use the most amount of applications is going to be x86 Windows devices. There are a few applications that are now becoming available on the MacBook Pro for, Apple Silicon. But as a whole, the majority of the applications are available on the Windows platform. So for the ProArt series, that is a clear win for you. You've seen some of the benchmark results come up on the screen as I've been saying this. And so as you can see, they get good performance inside of 3D modeling programs. Now, as we move down the line to video editing, let's take a look at the 4K export. This is where the ProArt series definitely has an advantage, specifically for the P16. You can see we have a 2-minute and 29-second export time versus the 4 minutes and 49 seconds for the MacBook Pro. And taking a look at the 6K export, we have the P16 at 16 minutes and 57 seconds. We have the MacBook Pro 15 minutes and 33 seconds. So as you increase the resolution, the MacBook Pro actually improves in performance over the ProArt series. So if you're a big 6K resolution editor, you're on the go a lot, you need to have performance while on battery power, man, the MacBook Pro is definitely a great choice for you. Now, looking at Premiere Pro playback, the playback was quite interesting for these laptops. You can see for the P16, 0 drop frames for 6K B-RAW, 403 for red footage. For the PX13 RTX 4060, we have 8 drop frames for B-RAW, 1033 for red footage. And then for the MacBook Pro, we have 0 drop frames for B-RAW, 1,958 for red footage. So definitely a big contender. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the thermals of each of these devices. That's a big area that one might consider when purchasing a device. Looking at the M4 Pro, we have a 4K export, a 9-minute clip placed in Premiere Pro and then exported out at full quality 4K settings. 0 decibels of fan noise. The fan does not turn on. The thermals reach 57 to 63 degrees Celsius. Absolutely amazing for that 4K export. Now, it's going to be a bit of a slower 4K export than the P16, 4 minutes and 49 seconds versus 2 minutes and, 16 seconds, I think. Looking at the P16, however, for the 4K export, if we put it on whisper mode, it could do it in 4 minutes and 42 seconds, so almost the same export time on battery power. 35 to 40 decibels of fan noise. So we're still gonna have some fan noise, and then 62 to 67 degrees Celsius. So if we go like neck and neck, both on battery power, both on, kind of their, efficiency modes, they're gonna be pretty much neck and neck with a little bit of fan noise out of the P16. However, to get that full fast export time, you're gonna do that in, again, 2 minutes and 29 seconds, 48 to 54 decibels of fan noise, 68 to 72 degrees Celsius. So though the laptop is loud, it does really well managing the thermals. Okay, now for the PX13. We have 55 decibels of fan noise for the 4K export on performance mode with a 75 degrees Celsius on the CPU. So good thermal management, but that's going to be quite a loud device. Okay, so which one should you buy? If you're a 3D modeler, pretty much, in my opinion, hands down, you want to be looking towards the ProArt series. More compatibility of applications, and it just is a better fit with the dedicated GPU. If you're looking for, say, video editing, Photoshop, on-the-go friendliness, and that's your main priority is efficiency and power on the go, the MacBook Pro really stands out. However, if you're looking for functionality, pen compatibility, the ASUS dial, you like the slightly more color accurate display, then the ProArt series really has a great advantage to you. And so both of these laptops are, in my opinion, the best creator laptops on the market at the moment. And they each have such unique benefits and assets to them that they're great for a specific user. So let me know in the comment section below which one you're considering picking. I personally have two favorites. Features and functionality, go to the P16. Efficiency and performance. In regards to efficiency and performance combined, it is a landslide towards the MacBook Pro. The ProArt series simply can't keep up when you unplug it from the charger. And on top of that, the MacBook Pro can run much, much longer while on battery power. Now, when you plug everything in, you look at the ProArt series and it's basically neck and neck for video editing. And so when you consider that, if you're somebody who isn't away from your desk a lot, the ProArt series with all its features may be the better fit for you, and specifically if you're into 3D modeling. But the MacBook Pro sets you up on a next level opportunity in regards to the performance. It's kind of what it is. You might argue, rage at me, yell at me in the comment section. I'd be happy for you to do so. It's interesting to see people's comments. Remember, click or tap the links in the description below if you want to make a purchase or check out the live pricing. Otherwise, I have tons more head-to-head benchmarks that can help you through buying decision. I'll see you in the next one.